So good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Malone Yang. I'm the Senior Specialist of Business Central at Encore. And today I'm excited to share some insight and walk through the sales and inventory forecast feature. Let me get started this presentation. And so, oops. This is our agenda. We'll have two sessions. First one is the function and foundation and setup, and the second one we will go into the real case, the execution, the demo, and troubleshooting that. All right. So before we get into the demo, um, let's talk about what AI-driven forecasting means in the Business Central. At a very simple level, the goal of the sales and inventory forecast as a feature is help us to predict future demand so we can keep the right amount of the inventory on hand, not too much, not too little. Traditionally, business order inventory reactively. Sometimes we wait until stock is low or something happened or someone noticed a problem, then we rush the order. And what this feature enable a more proactive approach for us. Business Central use the Azure AI as a kind of machine learning model to look at our historical sales data, specifically this item ledger entry, and identify pattern and how item has sold in the past. And based on those kind of patterns, and it will predict the demand might look like in the future. And now that we understand the purpose, let's talk about the setup and configuration because this is what the matter of the system function. First, this sales and the inventory focus was an extension in our old NAV version. And previously, NAV or the Business Central, we need to install that extension and enable that extension. But nowadays, the new the update BC version, we just need to go to sales and inventory focus setup page. And when we do that setup, and we also need to have some kind of fine tune of each item for the forecast period, for the variance, and yeah, that will automate the connect to the Microsoft, the Azure AI to do the forecast. So next, when we complete the setup, we move into the user experience because this is where the user actually interact with the forecasted data. The primary place we can see the result is on the item card through the sales and inventory focus fed box. So this is where the demand trend and focus quantity, stock out, those kind of context. This is also where we can use Copilot to give us more added value. Instead of user interpreting those kind of chart or focus number, Copilot can also give us the way to summarize what's happening. On the maintenance side, and focus also use the job queue, and we will also demo you how to run through that job queue and for one specific code unit. This allow the focus to refresh automatic, like we do that daily or do that weekly. Okay, let's get into the demo to see some real case of that. So I'm using the Cronus. The Cronus is the Microsoft the demo environment to see the focus function. Like we said, this is extension, but it's already published by the Microsoft. So all we need to do is go to the sales and inventory forecast setup. There's one setup page. Okay. So in this sales and focus setup, there's several parameters we need to see. The first one is this is of course is a toggle enable on off, and the period type is what the focus or the historical data, the horizon data we want to see. We can set monthly, weekly, day. Mostly we use monthly as the period type of the forecast. And the horizon is what the forecast horizon we want to see 6 months. We want to see the next 6 months trend. And stock out warning is used this field to specify how far into the future we wish to look into the stock out. The stock out, the horizon field is also corresponding to the months. Like here said 3, that means 3 months. Another important parameter is the variance. Variance is a kind is and we enter the value specified to the deviation and will be accepted in the forecast. So we need to know this is the kind of like interval deviation. Like if we set up the percentage 40%, 80%, that means plus minus 40% or plus minus 80%. Of course, smaller of the interval, smaller of the deviation, the variance will give us more accurate of the forecast result. Expiration period is enter a value to specify the number of the date that the forecast data will be expired. And another important parameter is the historical period. This historical period led us to enter a value to specify the number of period from which to get the data, especially item ledger entry data, from the historical to calculate and generate the forecast by AI. And this one is the machine learning model. Microsoft, as I said, Microsoft already embedded different type of the model. We want to know the different type of the model. How is the first one is a moving average, some is like seasonal trend, and we can go to those kind of Microsoft document to set different type of the how the system interpret different type of the model, or we also can go to my previous blog, and in here have one link to show us how we can use that the specific different type of the focus model. Okay, and once we complete the setup, complete all those kind of parameter in this setup, and all we can do is run the update forecast. This will, let me run this. This will trigger a job queue in the back end. And the job queue we can see when I run that, if I go to the job queue, you can see there's a job queue. This is one-time job because I triggered that at the screen, and the system run through that job queue to use all these parameters applied to every item, all items in our database. So it probably take a couple minutes to run through in the demo environment, and use those parameters to all items to calculate all items forecast data. And the other way we can do is use the schedule job. And here you can see we can get the schedule job is the notice to tell us we can use this schedule job to create a recurrent job. Also, this will run a current job here, and we can set it as daily, set it as weekly to run through all items by this parameter. We know there's only one page set up here. We don't have a specific item to set up the item specific parameter. It's only one page parameters to set up for all items. Let's see the job queue running. So looks it is complete. So once we apply that to every item, and we can go back to see the item focus result. In the fact box of each item, here is the item list. In the fact box of item list, we can see there's one focus. So this focus fact box to see the item specific. We go to each item. We also can open the item card. In the item card, we also can see the focus result in the item card here. So when we have this result, we can switch that into we want to see show the sales forecast, or we want to show that as an inventory forecast. Make it. Let's drop down and see this is the inventory, I think, and see the sales forecast. Okay, so we can see once we run through the global setup applied to every item already have the forecast data. But we can see this item have the forecast data is flat data, is because we are using the moving average to do that. And each sales forecast will show us the forecast quantity and also show us the variance. That means this moving average forecast quantity 16.17 have a plus minus of the variance 9.82. And like I said, when we run through those kind of global setup to every item, we always we always need to do the fine tune because this is average data. But what if I want to see the detail of the trend? I want to see and for some particular item, let me see for the item 1900, and let's try show the sales forecast. Let's show the sales forecast. Okay, it's still the average data. This moving because we are using move average. We want to do the fine tune of this particular item. Before that, like I said, system use the historical data item ledger entry. Therefore, if we show the item ledger entry, we will see this item have a starting from the January 2025, and we have purchase sales up to today. Therefore, use this historical data. I create a historical sales trend. Let's see this one. Let's see this one. This is item ledger entry and by the Excel pivot. And we can see this is historical trend of the by month. We'll see this kind of sales trend data for this particular item. But since we run that as moving average, system only give us the average result. But what if I want to have those kind of trend to see the forecast? We need to go into this item card to set to have the settings of the forecast. If I click the forecast setting, it still go to, we need to know, it still go to the global setup page. So that means if I do any update here, and if I have a recurrent job, the scheduled job running, that scheduled job will run the new parameters to all items. So let's do some fine tune of this one. If I see the historical, I will see I have a 15 of the period, 15 months of the historical data. So I want to update that too. I want to all sales data to be my historical data to calculate. And I want to have a lower of the variance to have a more accurate. And also, I don't want to the only the moving average. Maybe I can see the this kind of the seasonal trend and plus the moving average. Once I update the fine tune here and go back, and I can run through that particular that global parameter to this item only by update the sales forecast here. So run the sales forecast. Then I can see the better result based on that new parameter, based on this new parameter I set up here. And that will more practical, like we have and the based on the historical trend, and system use that focus model to give us. But we still need to know, okay, this is the focus, sales focus quantity, and it still have a plus minus of the variance, like it's 10, 39, and plus minus 250, 54. And this is the focus result, sales focus result. And the other way, we also based on the sales forecast and based on my current on-hand quantity, I can see the inventory forecast to show me the inventory forecast. And keep digging into more function of that is, since we already have the inventory forecast, and also I have the default, like default vendor settings here to say, okay, this item always place order, purchase from this vendor. Therefore, here I have one function to let us to create a purchase order. If I want to create purchase order, system will base on the quantity, the stock out quantity. Like here, the stock out quantity is minus 6.17. So when I try to create purchase order, we can see the purchase order create for this vendor, and system will have a purchase order quantity 7 because my stock out is 6.17. Let's create a quantity 7 for this particular item. Okay, so this is the the focus result. This will have a two focus result. Is one is the sales focus, one is the inventory focus, and this is also the particular parameter we set up for this one. And also we can use, and someone will said, okay, how come I get this kind of result? And of course, we know the historical data. We already have those kind of historical sales, and sometimes we want to know the summary of the focus result. We can see the Business Central also embedded with the Copilot to give us those summary of this one. Of course, here is the simple summary to if I said show more, and system will based on this item to give us more summary include of the forecast. Summary of this item include of the focus result. Like here said, I want to get more insight, and so the Copilot is thinking. Like he said, this is a quantity on hand and also the forecast. Give the forecast. And sometimes we also can use the Copilot to try to get more the intel. Like we want to ask Copilot to set, okay, please explain me something, or please find. Like here, I have a prompt sentence like said, explain the sales and inventory forecast of this item. Let's try that. Explain forecast. Like this one, explain the sales and inventory forecast for this particular item. Let's see. And the Copilot will see this page, see this item, and find the forecast and give you us maybe as a explanation or link based on this focus result to see. Okay, like he said, use the AI model to calculate the forecast. And also we can keep digging by the link of the Copilot provided. Okay, like I said, this one is we always need to fine tune for each item. For instance, like this item, we have a historical 15 period. Therefore, we run through the 15 period of the historical. We lower the variance. We want to have a more accurate, and move on to other items. Maybe this setup parameter and suitable for this item, but not for other item. For instance, like if I go to the item list to see maybe other items, we will see this kind of status is set variance too high. That means maybe this item have the historical data, but that data have a huge of the deviation up and down sales. Then we set up the settings, the variance percentage 40 is too low for that. Is this one have a too high of the variance? It's already over our acceptable variance in the global setup. So we will see this kind of status. So therefore, we always need to go into items to do the fine tune. Or sometimes we will see this kind of a um, like this kind of sentence said, okay, we don't have enough historical data. Of course, this one does not have historical, but if I set my setting here is 15 months, but my historical sales is only 5 months or 2 months, and that is not enough for us to do the forecast base. So therefore, we will see this kind of. Therefore, like I said, we want to see each item's focus. We always go to item card to do the focus settings and run through that item like I did for this item. Go to item card to do the focus settings and run through here for this item. Update the focus. Okay, I think this is majority of the focus function. Let's go back to the slide. So let's see the conclusion. Before we wrap up, this is really important to know, to be clear about what this feature is and what it is not. First, the forecast function in Business Central is we know this is only item level. It's not down into the stock keeping unit. If we are using location, it cannot be down into the location to see the forecast. It is not kind of the dashboard or not the management tool or management report, such as Power BI is not the kind of Power BI report. So we also cannot use that as to replace our MRP, because MRP is the full function of the demand forecast replenishment. And the forecast is also not the right into the demand planning. If we have those kind of forecast data on the item card, it does not write data into our demand forecast table. We know Business Central have a demand focus function. It does not write data into, it's just on the screen and give us a quick view of the forecast maybe for next 3, next 6 period. So instead of provide the insight that can for the information of the planning decision. So think about this as a guidance or just a quick view of the forecast is not but not for those kind of MRP automation. So the best position is a kind of lightweight, or we can set the fast forwarding, fast moving of the item, and it helps user can anticipate the potential stock out and also give us a suggest of the purchase quantity and for some item basis. Because of that, we think this particular will suit for the maybe small, fast-moving business like e-commerce. Those kind of company have a track. I want to track items number. So those small amount of the item number and want to have a short-term visibility to set maybe next 3 months. And where is do I have a stock out next 3 months? Where is my item forecast? So we always remember this will not replace the MRP. If we are already start using Power BI or MRP for those kind of forecast trend, that'll be our tool to do that. But if we does not have a full function of MRP or don't have the Power BI report, this can be an option for us to do the sales focus and the inventory focus. I think that is all. This is all we have today.